The horror game genre has produced some of the best games ever made, and also some of the worst. We went from Alien Isolation to some shit out the Gumby show. This new mascot horror wave started with FNAF and the million copies of it, obviously. Then Bendy and the Ink Machine and Baldi's Basics dominated, until Piggy dropped on Roblox. And if this timeline is a set of dominoes, Piggy is as if you put an 8-foot domino in the center of it and then rocket punch the shit out of it. It blew up, beginning this huge wave of mascot horror games. Not only on Roblox, but official horror releases as well, like Poppy's Playtime, that would go on to inspire even more of them. Then you obviously had kids channels like these pushing them further and further. It was like a internet tsunami, but the tsunami circled back and got bigger every time. But I'm pretty sure it's hit its peak, if you can call this a peak. See, the catalyst games of this huge wave were really creative and stylistic, which is where the horror genre is at its best, turning any aesthetic you can think of into something unnerving and scary. But instead of more creative games dropping, they literally just dissolved into visual mush. Mascot horror went from a really cool concept to a bunch of walking colorful blobs to hit all the attention synapses in a child's brain. But thankfully, mascot horror is not all we've gotten recently. Brilliant story-based horror games like the recent Resident Evil remakes, the Dead Space remaster, and the new Amnesia game, as well as some that were dropped years ago like The Evil Within, Silent Hill, and Alien Isolation, just to name a few. But the big guys aren't the only ones dropping fire horror games. Independent horror developers push the genre even further with their creative expression than ever before. They were fresh takes on the genre that weren't afraid to take risks. Horror is such an amazing genre because of this creative freedom it gives. There has never been a set format to stick to, other than giving YouTubers PTSD. The stark contrast between something like Doki Doki and Silent Hill, for example, gives you an idea of how diverse and unique the genre is. And for the longest time, it thrived off these unique takes in every game. Until now. Instead of original ideas and stories that grab you by the neck and shake the shit out of your ass, we have the Garten of Banban. These are the monsters. You're right, this is rock bottom. See, the current wave of horror games is making them all take place in an establishment for children. Garten of Banban being a literal kindergarten. What's up with that, by the way? And making all the monsters look like child's toys. I wonder where they got that brilliant concept from. Is his name Pancreas too? You know what, I actually like Garten of Banban, I take it back, it's all good. Instead of growing and becoming more interesting, mascot horror has literally just devolved to the point where we are just copy-pasting the same games 3 times a year. And this issue isn't just in single-player horror. That motherfucker right there did irreparable damage to multiplayer horror games. Dead by Daylight. The guys who popularized the fix 5 generators while getting chased format. Sure, it was unique when it dropped, until every horror game with a budget decided to adopt the to-do list format for literally no reason. Obviously, there's a few games that get out of this formula, like the Backrooms games, the SCP games, and even though Phasmophobia is a to-do list horror game, it is literally the only one where it makes sense. But these fellows are far and few between. See, with the rest, you're not really fighting to survive. You're just fighting to complete arbitrary tasks that don't really seem necessary. Dead by Daylight's lore is that an evil god wants you to do it because it's entertaining. I don't believe that shit for a second. If there is an evil deity, that motherfucker is not entertained. And regardless, I'm paying money to shit myself in fear, not engage in manual labor and maintenance duties. The lack of creativity in the multiplayer horror sphere is thankfully overshadowed by the rise in SCP and Backrooms games, where instead of horror IPs being crammed into a game-shaped can, you're placed directly into these terrifying settings with the main goal being to get out alive. The latter being the one that doesn't stop being scary after 2 fucking rounds, because the focus is on the scary shit, not on your engineering degree. I need you boys to cover the door in case the creature arrives. I'll have the lights back on in no time. And while this slow but sure devolution in both single-player and multiplayer horror games has been going on a while, I think we're at a turning point. For single-player games, it's the recent and upcoming remakes of these pillars of the genre, like Silent Hill, Dead Space, and all the Resident Evil games, showing the potential of the genre to not only old fans, but new ones as well. And for multiplayer, the success of the SCP and Backrooms games, I can only hope brings about more cool creepypasta games that specialize in recreating the unique vibe they have. As for the genre as a whole, indie devs alone have made amazing, completely unique creative works of art that push the genre further, and they'll continue to do so. And this is also the only genre where I believe big studios will follow that, because horror games are at their creepiest when they're doing their own thing. Alright, thanks for watching, join the Discord, and I'll see you next time. Peace!